And after this creative and artistic rethinking of the transformation of the collective arts production, we are coming to the conversation about the innovations, digital transformation, and the new technologies. So we will discuss the key vectors of the development of innovative solutions in DTEK company, and we will be joined by the DTEK Chief Innovation Officer, Emanuele Volpe. Please, Mr. Volpe. Head of IT and Modus Digital Transformation Program at DTEK, Dmitro Osika. Let's welcome him as well. The advisor on the Director General, DTEK Chief Technical Officer Philippe Lequebouche, and also we are in touch with the Chairman of the DTEK Advisory Council, Johan Bastin. Good evening, Mr. Bastin. So, gentlemen, let us begin with the context, maybe, of the overall situation where the business will be working during the next decade. Let us first speak to you, Mr. Bastin. When we speak about the transformation of such huge systems like the company of DTEK, what is in the foundation of it? Which values need to be defining, in your opinion?
I think it's good to start with what caused this transformation, and Maxim Timchenko has already discussed it this morning. That's energy transition, and that started well over a decade ago. And energy transition has revolutionized the electricity industry in the same way that the internet has revolutionized the communication and media industry. Mr. Timchenko this morning elaborated on its constituent components. He mentioned decarbonization, decentralization of distributed power, and digitalization. Well, let's put first this in a broad context of the corporate strategic implications it has for DTEK as a whole. Decarbonization started really in the late 1990s, mid-1990s, on a very small scale. It was more local communities, individuals that promoted green energy. And it has become much more prominent and much more, a much bigger force since it became clear that there's a link between climate change and greenhouse gas emissions. And as a result, there have been policies that have shaped our industry. And our industry accounts, the electricity and heating sector accounts for about 25% of global emissions. It has resulted in the advance of renewable energy, and renewable energy has decreased in cost tremendously. At the moment, it is viable as a new installation in 70% of the countries in the world. So compare new gas or new coal-fired installations with renewables. In 70% of cases, it's a cheaper source of electricity. In Ukraine, the implication was that the expansion of renewables has sent thermal power lower down the dispatch order, meaning that it has been displaced in certain instances by renewable energy generation. The second aspect is energy market liberalization. It's different from decarbonization, and it started all to achieve economies in efficiency in allocation of economic resources. It resulted in liberalization of market, it resulted in increasing electricity prices for consumers in the EU, and it created new markets such as for ancillary services. Also, it was the driving force behind unbundling of distribution and generation. Then the last aspect here is the democratization of demand. The transition, we have seen a transition, and again, Mr. Timchenko this morning touched on it. We've seen a transition from technology-centric to consumer-centric. We've seen a demand also for green energy. Companies like Apple, Amazon, Microsoft all have large offtake contracts with renewable energy producers. But also your local supermarket wants to have solar PV on its rooftop. It also resulted in increased customer choice of supplier, better quality of services, and a range of services centered around energy management. DTEK's corporate strategic response has been to increase the efficiency of its traditional business, thermal power generation, and thereby lowering CO2 emissions and making thermal power generation more competitive. It has expanded on a big scale into renewables, and it has transformed the organizational structure of the company from vertically integrated to a horizontal company, where we have now 6 companies that are autonomous and each focusing on a specific aspect of the value chain in electricity sector. Remarkably also, DTEK has made progress in a sector where you normally would have to run in order to stand still. So it has done remarkably well. But you may ask, what has this to do with innovation, the topic of this session? Technological innovation has been and continues to be an enabler of energy transition. But innovation is not just it's not just in technology. It's also at the level of the corporate strategy of DTEK, its objectives, its organizational structure, its support of climate action. This innovation at the level of DTEK's in corporate mission is care for the health and safety of employees. Its concerns about global climate change and the environment and its promotion of fairness and transparency in business conduct is all encapsulated in the ESG strategy that DTEK adopted last year. And I think it's a proud achievement of DTEK to have embarked on a path of environmental, social and financial sustainability, and to be among the first energy companies in the former CIS countries to have done so.
Спасибо, господин Бастин. Итак, инновации.
Thank you, Mr. Bastian. So not only innovations, but a the whole complex of measures. Mr. Volpe, how do we begin the innovations in the company, which decided to have this whole way of transformation? How is it happening? This is the question to you. Yes, thank you for the question, Anna. The innovation is always beginning with one simple word. Why not? Just remember, when we were children, we asked this question for lots of times, why? And when we had the answer, there was the whole new world opening in front of us. The innovations are not technology, as it was properly mentioned before. Technology is the process of innovations, but mostly the innovations are the people. This is the culture of openness, that is the upbringing, and that is not to be afraid to commit mistakes. That is to study on your own mistakes. And that is why a couple of years ago we launched what is called Innovation DTEK ID Community, where we are conducting thematic meetings and workshops in our company to approximate the people to the technologies. A couple of years we are trying to solve the challenges from the business with the help of creativity. For instance, legacy display, or we attract the experts from the Singularity University, where we can hear about the leading exponential technologies. Or we invite our colleagues to the Innovation Roundtable, where our colleagues can get acquainted with other colleagues from different countries and to share their experience. Of course, all of that is not enough, because we heard how the world is changing rapidly. And we cannot just, with our own efforts, to develop the innovations within our company. That is why we implemented the approach of open innovations in our company. We have defined 6 main stakeholders of innovations, where the innovations are embedded in them. They're in their DNA. They are the startups and our customers. We shouldn't ever forget that those are our customers who will pay our salaries. So we will need to be more customer-centric. Suppliers, contractors, funds, universities, and why not corporations? So, for the innovations not to be just a theory or something very cool, the innovation should be just for everyone. The innovation not to be just for the sake of innovation, we launched our platform, openinnovation.com, DTEK.com. So, where we publicly are making people aware which challenges we face, everybody can register there and apply with your suggestions, your solutions. Thank you. If I say that innovations is a kind of synergy of ideas, will it be enough, precise enough? In any different forums, using different technologies, but a synergy. Is this word important for the innovative processes? Do I understand you correctly, Mr. Volpe? Yes, you're totally right. We may say like this as well. Thank you. Dmitry, the next question is for you. You are dealing with the digital transformations. For about 2 years, you're implementing the project, right? So would you please tell, how is it working? Which transformations you are dealing with? And the most important thing, what needs to happen for you to feel that you've achieved some result? Thank you for your question. I'd like to say that our global aim is the transformation of DTEK company into the digital enterprise. We believe that up to 2025 plus, we will achieve it. Why does DTEK need it? Well, because the world is changing. The world is becoming more modern and innovative, and the energy sector should change as well. That is why we in DTEK have defined the main 4 why we need it. The increase of operational efficiency, the management of the business, the safety of our production, and the connections with the client. We may say a lot how complicated that is and how we can achieve it, but in my opinion, digital transformation can begin and maybe should become the part of the DNA of our company. In fact, it's never the end. Never the end. So this is the main idea. Thank you. Mr. Lekebush, and I'd like to ask you and you to join us on our discussion. Would you please tell which technologies should be done today for the companies which work in the energy sector, like DTEK company?
I think it's very important that when we talk about new technologies, we need to understand what they mean for me. And technology must have a purpose. So just to give a few examples, for example, the coal miner, he will ask himself, what does a new technology make my job more comfortable, give me more safety, and also to be more productive? And for the company as a whole, we need to understand what will these technologies have an impact on our business, on how we are doing our daily job. So these are the questions I think we need to answer, and I think this is what your question aims for. And in the end, let me give you a few examples how this is being illustrated, what is happening right now, because we are now in an age of tremendous exponential development of new technologies. For example, when we look at renewable energy, the last 10 years, solar PV modules size increased by approximately 10 watt per year, from 300 to 400 watt until 2018. And now we see a tremendous growth. Only in 1 year, we enter the 500 watt class, and next year we will see already the 600 watt class. So a tremendous technological breakthrough is happening. And we have heard from Maris this morning in wind. When I started to do the first wind projects here, we were talking about the 3 megawatt class of wind turbines. Now with our next projects, which we want to start to build next year, we are entering already the 6 megawatt class. So in a couple of years, suddenly a breakthrough in technology. And last but not least, batteries. So the lithium-ion battery pack, which we will use for our electric vehicles, in 2010, the cost was approximately, on average, $1,100 per kilowatt hour. And now we are entering already average $137, and everyone says the breakthrough will be when we enter $100 per kilowatt hour. And everyone expects this in 3 years to happen. And that means at that day, an electric powered vehicle will be as economical as a gasoline-fired car. So you see that there are tremendous technological breakthroughs. Then we have talked about artificial intelligence and digitalization. The question is again, what does it mean for us? What does it mean for DTEK grids? And what does it mean for a plant operator? It will help them to have much more data available to operate their plants much more efficiently in a much more unstable environment. And we have heard from DTEK Trading how very difficult these markets are, especially when renewables come with intermittent electricity generation. So this is the impact in our company of artificial intelligence. Then we have new business models. We have to link, and this is also very important, we have to link our generation with the demand. And that means, again, processing of information. The power plant operator needs to give his information to the trading to say, is my plant ready to operate in half an hour? And the trading needs to know what demand will I have in the next hour. So to link this, so this is new business models, and there are new companies who are entering these business models. And the last what I want to talk about is the advent of hydrogen. It hasn't been talked about yet. Hydrogen is not a replacement, it's not a new fuel, because hydrogen will help us to decarbonize parts of the industry which were very difficult to decarbonize. And I'm talking here about the chemical industry, I'm talking about steel industry, and I'm talking about heavy haul freight or transport, shipping, maritime, and in the end, even aviation. So we see new potential, new sectors nobody could thought about to decarbonize only a couple of years ago. So you see there is tremendous change in technology.
So, we understand the speed of the changes, and we understand that in the beginning, first we have the aim, then the technologies. Let us now speak about the scenarios which are already being implemented in DTEK. Mr. Volper, first the question is to you. The strategies. Which plans of development does the Board on Innovation have? As I said, we'll speak in more details about the scenarios. Please, the floor is yours.
Innovation. Beyond. The energy. Boundary.
Innovation behind the energy boundaries. So why did we define this name? We've studied the experience of different companies, and we saw how different companies have already conducted this way of transformation, how different companies are already understanding new branches. 6 examples: Enel, Italian company, international company already, with the headquarters which is located in Rome, in Italy. 60 million of customers. This year, they've launched the simultaneous business as a bank. They are providing financial services. Shell, oil and gas. We all know that they are producing oil and gas, they extract oil and gas. That is why they are inclined to have the internal combustion engines. So, okay, they're beginning to install the charging stations at their stations to charge electrical vehicles. So they themselves found some business which, in brackets, is killing itself. Tesla, we all know, the company which is creating electrical vehicles. They got the license for the sales of electrical energy in England. They are creating the demand, and they are covering the need. Volkswagen, they've got the license for the sales of electrical energy in Germany. TET, ex-Lot Telecom, that is the telecommunications company, which also got the license for the electrical energy. They already have the client base. They've got telecom services as the data. Why not sell electrical energy if the end user is there already? Telstra is the telecom company from Australia, just the same. Telecom company from Australia which is selling, they got the license to sell electrical energy. That is why the question to us, what will happen in DTEK in 15 years? How will DTEK look like? Either even more strict and severe question. DTEK is a utility company, but will we need a utility company in 5 years or maybe even 2 years? Let us come through and along some way which DTEK had. Several years ago, the company was created as the traditional generation one, a very simple business model, to extract coal, to produce electrical energy, to sell it. Then there were the renewables emerging. And now the renewables is not that nice to have, it's must have. Otherwise, we are out of the market. 2 years ago, we have created our IT community and began to study deeper and touching and implementing 8 new exponential leading technologies: 3D printing and regenerative design, then cross-reality and wearables, blockchain, hydrogen, Internet of Things, smart home, artificial intelligence, drone, exoskeleton robots, and then energy storage for the system. This year we've already begun to touch the new business models which can concern venture building and other business models which are closer to our customers. All of that is an overall picture which we have now in DTEK. Our philosophy is reflected and our vision is reflected in 3 different horizons. The first horizon is what's already now can be found in DTEK, which is already the part of our business. We've got 3 main aims. That is the increase of the safety level, then the increase of efficiency, reliability, and the environmental use and the ecological component. We are working there with DTEK already. Then we added a couple more points which concern directly our technologies. We would like to say that our employees have become closer to technologies. That is why we conducted during this year different thematic meetings. This year we had 18 thematic meetings, 400 colleagues took part in them, and 14 workshops where 140 people, colleagues of ours, took part in that. Why? For them to approximate to those technologies and to generate additional ideas and to increase competences. The second level is the current and the future level of DTEK. Here we develop 2 technologies. First is the energy storage system, and secondly hydrogen. The energy storage system, DTEK has become the first company which in Ukraine is implementing the system of energy storage at the industrial level. Last year we've signed the contract for the delivery with the American Honeywell. We've produced the equipment, And I need to say that yesterday we finalized 6 factory tests. So all of the equipment is ready. We definitely had the factory tests, positive ones, and now they're sending it to Ukraine. What do we plan since the next year? First, to install and to launch it into action in Zaporizhia. This is the system of 1 megawatt, 2 and 25 megawatt hours. Then we'll get certification for the energy storage system at the market, and then we'll begin to play with that. Because for Ukraine, it's a new technology at such scale. No one has ever faced this issue. In 2020, if everything is successful, we'll scale up the energy storage system. Then we'll prepare the projects with the common flexible generation on energy storage, and the third project with the renewables. 2023, what will happen in Europe? All of those 20-something years, when the first electric cars emerged, they had these systems, energy storage systems, which need to be then disposed. But why not just bring them to Ukraine and to try to reprocess them, to recycle this material? This is not garbage, this is not litter, because there are rare metals there. This is a nice business, which during the next years will be really needed. And in 2023, why not begin construction something more serious with the system of energy storage for the renewables? As for hydrogen, we already announced that we wanted to become carbon-free up to 2040. Hydrogen is the technology which allows that. This is the technology which last year got a very substantial attention in Europe, and we would like to become part of this business. This year, we are working to create the hydrogen strategy of DTEK, to be prepared for the implementation of the pilot project with the electrolyzer for 8.5 megawatt, which, as we think, will be based and located in Zaporizhia. Then we'll try to create hydrogen clusterization. Why? Because hydrogen is, in the future, is rather interesting to generate and export. So far, Ukraine is not ready for that. So we'll try to have that incremental, in little steps, the pilot project, to gain some experience. And then to get ready to 2025 for the export to Europe. The third horizon is the future of DTEK. We've got 3 projects, as we can see. The first is the creation of venture building. What is that? In fact, we began it 2 years ago to try to touch what innovation with startups means. And we launched it, our accelerator. During 2 years, we've gained some experience, and we filtered 1,500 startups. We scouted them, and 40 of them are already piloting into business, have piloted and are piloting now. Some of them have already awarded the contracts for the long-term cooperation and relationship. So I should mention that one of those startups, IceDraft, last week they got an exit. What's called an exit? They were acquired for a big sum of money by the American company. When it happens, this is a kind of a big celebration, because we didn't only pilot, we didn't only implement it in DTEK, but we also have been acknowledged as the interesting technology. That is why not try this approach of venture building? We are creating new services with our own efforts, step by step, with little budgets. The second project, as it was already mentioned by Dissolution CEO Abdullah, we wanted to launch a pilot on telemedicine with Yasno. Why? Because we could see that in 2020, it was really a hard year because of the virus, but the complications are transformed into opportunities. The third project will be launched with the data, with DTEK grids. To conclude my speech, I'd like to say, a couple of years ago, we just created a little team. Thank you to the board who trusted us, because we have become a kind of a benchmark in Ukraine. Thank you, business, who accepted us. We wanted to go on that, and I'd like to conclude my speech and to say, why not? Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Volpe. A kind of a round of applause from you, dear friends. That was the DTEK Chief Innovation Officer, Emanuele Volpe. And now let's concentrate on the digital transformation in the same details. Dmitry, which solutions are prepared by Modus to provide digital transformation of DTEK? In more details, please. Okay, hello, dear colleagues. Again, let us remember how it all began and what digital transformation is and where we are now at. Together with you.
Наша жизнь ежедневно меняется. Ее меняют технологии. Сегодня они влияют на то, как мы работаем, отдыхаем, общаемся и развиваемся. Современный бизнес невозможен без цифровой трансформации. И вопрос не в том, нужна ли она. Главное, как ее эффективно осуществить. Цифровое настоящее – это не просто IT и технологии. Это обновление стратегии и корпоративной культуры. Модус – это программа цифровой трансформации DTEK. Мы меняемся для того, чтобы строить новую энергетику страны. Надежную, экологичную, безопасную и энергоэффективную.
Наша цель с помощью цифровой трансформации – повысить операционную эффективность, гибкость, управляемость бизнеса, улучшить безопасность производства, усилить понимание рынка и связи с нашими клиентами.
Цифровая трансформация охватывает все основные процессы в компании. От добычи газа и угля, производства и дистрибуции электроэнергии до логистики и клиентских сервисов.
Лидерство требует изменений. Наша мечта после 2025 года стать цифровым предприятием. Программа «Модус» трансформирует эти диджитал-мечты в реальность.
Dear colleagues, when we launched our digital transformation, we were dreaming. And our dreams were born in some book of dreams. That was the name, the Book of Dreams. So we dreamt in each direction of the business development. So let us look which dreams are already becoming reality. Artificial intelligence foresees the breakages at the Kursk heat power station, thermal power station. The mobile technologies are bringing our processes into the high-quality level to avoid repairments at the enterprises of DTEK. Drones and algorithms of artificial intelligence are already now preventing the breakages at the DTEK and electrical grid. Robots at the service of DTEK service are working 24/7 and give some freedom for our accountants from the routine. Wi-Fi and smart sensors in the mine of Yubileyny are taking care about the safety of our employees and doing the opening of the bigger ecosystem for the digital opportunities for our mines. All of those technologies have already become our present. But let us remember how it all began. Again, in 2019, there was launched the first wave, 5 modules, digital mine, grids, heating, thermal power plant, logistics, and HR. And since then, now the effect is more than 230 million hryvnia. In 2020, we had the second wave, the digital deposit, office, procurement, and analytics. In 2021, we are planning to launch 2 more modules, that is digital renewables and client. All of those waves, modules, projects in them are approaching us to the main aim, the digital enterprise, where the new operational business models, new digital processes, where the digital technologies are actively used at all of the levels of our organization, where digital culture and digital thinking and our employees are open to the new and are ready to experiment. This is our global aim. If we come back to the issue which exactly solutions are provided by Modus program, I'd like to say in short about the most significant about them because I'm short of time. The modus of digital mine, we created the infrastructure of communications which opens new horizons. Just now, there is the project on the security and safety, and just today we've signed the State Act on the positioning system and locationing system according to this big complex. Digital grids, we've got 6 projects, and that the main is the collection and digitalization of the data about the grids. We have the auto-identification of the defects with the help of the computer vision, scanning, and also we create 3D models. And this project helps us to decrease the number of any emergencies. The model of digital thermal power plants. This is where we use Internet of Things, machine learning, the technology of data lake. It allows us to reduce the time, the losses of the fuel, and artificial intelligence helps us to prevent the emergencies at our production. More than 170 million hryvnia is the effect of this project since it was launched. Digital logistics, big data, models, the artificial intelligence helps us to optimize the logistic operations. This model brought more than 37 million hryvnia to our savings. And the digital HR, we are helping with the data here for our colleagues to train our employees. One of the flagship products of ours is implemented in 3 businesses at once: coal, grids, and generation. This is the project of mobile units. We're doing that on our own, with our own efforts. Now it has been started in the grids, in the industrial use. More than 130 units are using this app actively, and gradually we are beginning to use the generation. More than 10 units are using it. Since in January, we'll include coal. And daily it saves at least 1 hour without filling up paper-based forms. More than 10% of the effect of the blackout of the systems, and also we decrease the time for the repairment. So this is a 100% digital project from the beginning of this process till the end of it. The next module is digital field or deposit. Here, together with the colleagues, we are creating models, optimizing the work of the wells, and the potential of this module is rather huge. More than 130 million hryvnia a year after it's finalized. And digital office witnesses that not only the productive tasks we are facing them, but we need to take away and to get rid of routine operations. So we do introduce robotic process automation to improve the quality of our processes. Digital procurement, this was delayed till 2021. According to big data, we provide scoring models, categorization, and with the help of the tools of digital marketing, we are attracting new customers. Digital analytics, the model itself already witnesses that the data and analytics in our company is a huge value. And our approach of data-driven decision witnesses that the company wants to change and to take the decisions according to the data more and more in their daily activity. Here, with the colleagues from the renewables, we already came to the production data, and we will develop this direction further on. Separately, I'd like to mention who is transforming DTEK, because it's not only about the Modus program, right? I'd like to say that the teams in business is one of the moving forces which allow us to do that. Modus is coordinating the program, but in the synergy, altogether, we are achieving this effect. And of course, our digital expertise. We know how to manage the products. We have flexible technologies. We have the expertise in data science, data engineering. IT technologies is the basis. This is the level which allows us to move on. The innovative technologies and digital solutions. This is what's giving new opportunities for our company. The external ecosystem of the partners, as you can see, it's rather big. We have the company with more than 200 vendors in 15 countries of the world. We've got lots of partners. And of course, I'd like to say that those are people. People, because all of us and each of us is approaching the future of DTEK with our actions. And for this future to come closer, we launched together with the Academy of DTEK the program of digital transformation, which is called DX School, Digital Experience, which provides the push, the start for the new competences which are so needed by our company. The future. The future is open and simultaneously is unknown. The future can be characterized and described as some X. Maybe even now there is some new technology developed which can radically change our world tomorrow, as it was mentioned by the previous speaker. But we know exactly that this future is focused on the human being and modern technologies. That is why digital transformation is our way into the future. And to conclude my presentation, I'd like to say that today it's so important to have those three words which you could see in the screen: adaptation, innovation, and transformation. Why is that important? To be more connected in the future, to be smarter, more intelligent, to be more sustainable, to be more reliable and efficient. The future is the future of opportunities, the world of opportunities which is opening in front of us. Today we say that we don't only dream, but we can implement our dreams into reality. Thank you. Thank you so much. The round of applause. This was the head of IT and Modis program, Dmitry Osika. And now let us go on with the visionary, if in fact we are doing that, telling about the plans. Mr. Bastin, the question is to you. This year taught us that the future sometimes is not that easy to be predicted. It sped up lots of the processes. Would you please tell? What do you think? Which key changes are expected by the world energy sector during the closest future? And how can it impact, maybe speed up or slow down the processes of transformation which are now coming through the DTEK, our strategic plans, please?
First of all, the overall impact will be at the economic level. The pandemic is causing one of the most severe economic shocks in modern history, and it will certainly affect demand patterns in the energy sector and also the wider economic environment. As regards the impact on our own sector, I think there are a number of areas where we can expect changes. First of all, there will be an acceleration of climate action. We have seen that in recent weeks, the EU has increased its greenhouse gas emission targets for 2030 to 55% of 1990 levels. That's more than 35% increase over previous targets for 2030. Also, the package, the stimulus package, economic stimulus package that the EU has enacted, a quarter of that will be for combating climate change. The other area where we will see changes and acceleration is that of renewable energy. We will see a rapid growth of renewable energy, more than we have seen in the past. It's being stimulated by policies, and also there are enabling other factors. We will see decarbonization of the electricity sector. This will affect thermal power generation, and we will see in the imposition of CBAM, a carbon border adjustment tax for imports into the EU. Another aspect is that there will be changing work practices. People have now come accustomed to using video conferencing as a way to meet. So I think we will see more people working at home for at least part of the time. We will see also less business-related travel. So I think it will affect the way in which we work. And finally, I think for Ukraine, there's an opportunity here in the energy sector to have a major impact on the country's post-COVID economic recovery, helping to create jobs in areas that help also the energy transition and energy efficiency. It's a very important area in installing small-scale solar PV on rooftops, and in reducing transmission of network losses. DTEK can play a very important role in promoting investment in these areas and creating good jobs, new jobs, green jobs. Thank you.
Спасибо, спасибо, господин Бастин. Так как же мы воспользуемся...
Thank you, Mr. Bastin. We will use this opportunity, and if everything is working, let us try, in a nutshell, to sum it up, all the information which we heard, and to tell which opportunities can be in the future, and the new technologies opening for the tech company. This question is for you, Mr. Lekebush, please.
If we can summarize, I think what we have heard both from Emanuele and Dimitri and also from Johan, it's very important that innovation, digitalization is something which changes the culture of our company and the way we work, because it only works if we as a whole, as a company, see this as our own mission. And then I think it will generate the results automatically. So it's not an issue of an innovation group or a digital modus group. It's a cultural issue. And I think this is one of the lessons what we have learned from this discussion, that if we roll this out and if we see this as part of our company culture, then we will meet all the challenges we will see ahead of us. So this is for me one major takeaway. The next one is that technology development will happen, whatever we will do with it, this will be the key issue. And I think here the saying is even more important. It's the ones who are not waiting for change to happen, it's the ones who shape the future. And I think DTEK has this spirit, because everything what we have heard today symbolizes this spirit and this culture of the company, that we are ready to shape the future of the country, but also the future of our company. And I think this is an extremely important part of our DNA, that we say that we are constantly working on transforming our business, because this is what is happening in the world. And we were always talking, I mean, this was a very challenging year. Let's say it very honestly, it was very hard for every one of us. But what we also see is that while we are working on the challenges here in Ukraine every day, the world around us is not standing still. We have heard that actually improvements are accelerating. And now the question for us is, do we take these chances, these new business opportunities in digitalization? When you see there are startups, every day you see new startups with new business models. So the question for us is only, do we grab these opportunities? Do we see them? Are we not afraid of this transformation, because it means new opportunities? Of course, it means change and it means risks for us. But if we have this mentality that this provides new opportunities for us as a company to grow, and also to provide the stable environment and the good work and the interesting challenges for all of us, then I think there will be another 15 and many, many other years for DTEK to come. And I think this is for me the key takeaway of this day today. So we are not afraid of the future, we shape the future.
Может быть, для того, чтобы мы совсем...
So maybe to stop being afraid of the future, let us try to define it very quickly, because we're so short of time, just with 2 words. Which 2 words would you choose for the description of the future, Mr. Volpe? Opportunity, and it won't be boring. Not boring opportunity, okay, Dmitry? That is human centricity, okay, Mr. Lekebush?
Accelerated transformation.
Accelerated transformation. И господин...
And Mr. Bastin, your option, 2 words of yours?
Yeah, it's difficult to say it in just 2 words, but I like to refer to Charles Darwin, environment will ensure that you can survive.
Environment. Thanks. Есть своя версия.
I've got my own option which I need to offer, which is energy singularity, and in a couple of minutes we'll understand why I have such a choice. But still, I'd like to thank all of the speakers, all of the participants of this, in fact, totally fantastic conversation, if we just think about it, what you were speaking about and what you were discussing. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Let us give a round of applause to the DTEK Chief Innovation Officer Emanuele Volpe, Head of IT and Modus Digital Transformation Program at DTEK Dmitro Osika, DTEK Director General Advisor on Technological Development Philippe Lekebush, the Chairman of the DTEK Advisory Council Jochen Bastin. Thank you so much, gentlemen. And we are now will be considering what energy singularity is, or a negularity, in fact.
Друзья,
Dear friends, would you please tell? We'll now have a totally interesting fairy tales questions. How often do you dream of endless life? Did you want to live longer, or maybe even to become to live forever? Do you know that death can die? Yes, it totally happens. But would you like to get to know how to use telepathy with your feelings, your wishes, maybe some of the guidelines or instructions and decrees? In what I am saying now, it's not that fairy tale, in fact. All of those questions contain not that much of science fiction, in fact, than it may seem to you. In the world of energy singularity, there will be maybe lots of things which are possible. So now I'm happy to introduce our today's guest. Let us welcome the chair of the Venezuela node of the Millennium Project and energy advisor at Singularity University in Silicon Valley, Dr. Jose Luis Cordeiro. So please, a round of applause for you. Hello, Mr. Cordeiro. I'm so happy to welcome you. Hello. So, what is energy singularity? Which incredible surprises are being prepared by the future? Please, the floor is yours now.
It is a pleasure to be back in the Ukraine, even if virtually now. I was once in person about 20 years ago, and I want to talk to you about the beautiful opportunities of the future and what I call the energularity, the energy singularity. I work with many international groups related to the future. One is the Millennium Project, that began as the futuristic part of the United Nations University, and now we are an independent NGO that tracks future developments. One of those, obviously, is energy, and it is the lucky number 13, the future of energy. We publish reports about the future, like the state of the future, every year, and also work on technology scenarios for the year 2050 with some forecasts, some projections to the future. We look at the population of the planet. Actually, it's stabilizing already in many countries, even declining. Countries like the Ukraine, Russia, Europe, Japan, the population is declining. And for the rest of the world, it is also stabilizing. However, the economy is still growing, and it is growing exponentially. If you look at the vertical axis, that is the GDP per capita in constant US dollars, that used to be $1,000 per person per year, and then it went up to $10,000 per person per year, and it is moving up to $100,000 per person per year. Even with crisis, even with wars, the overall trend is positive, including with COVID. Most of the economies will be recovered by next year after the COVID-19 crisis. Also, the stock market. The stock market has been growing exponentially. This is the Dow Jones Industrials Index from New York, and since it began, it has been growing exponentially, even with wars, with pandemics, and this trend will continue because the economies are growing faster exponentially. The first country in the history of humanity that doubled its income per capita was the United Kingdom during the Industrial Revolution between 1780 and 1838. Then other countries learned about how to grow faster and faster. And the record today is China. China, every 7, 8, 9 years, doubles its income. And the whole world is joining. India will do this very soon, even countries in Africa. This began during the Industrial Revolution at the end of the 18th century. Until that time, we were in what is called the Malthusian trap because of the English economist Thomas Robert Malthus, who said that the world was condemned because we didn't have enough resources and we had too many people. Fortunately, Malthus was wrong. And with the Industrial Revolution, the world economy grew almost 100% in the 19th century, almost 400% in the 20th century, and in this century, it is going to grow thousands percent. We are living in incredible exponential times. Cities are being transformed very quickly in Asia, in Latin America, starting in Africa. And all of this is related to the idea of the singularity that was popularized by my friend Ray Kurzweil, who also studied in MIT, my alma mater, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and he talks that technology that is digitized grows exponentially. Maybe every 2 years, every 3 years, it grows exponentially. This idea became actually a university in Silicon Valley, and it was the founding faculty for energy, monitoring the exponential changes in energy and how we are moving from fossil fuels into renewable energy. And one of the things we also talk about is immortality. We believe that by the year 2045, we will become immortal. We will be able to stop aging, reverse aging. Why? Because everything, again, is changing exponentially, faster, smaller, cheaper, and better. We don't understand exponential change because our brains think linearly. We evolved in a small world of linear thinkers, and we think linearly. But technology changes exponentially. For example, if we compare linear steps or exponential steps, it is very different. Linear steps, 30 linear steps of 1 meter each is 30 meters. But if we do exponential steps and we double, after 30 doublings, we have walked over 1 billion meters and have gone around planet Earth 26 times. So there is a huge difference between linear and exponential change. And I'll give you another example, because when I began studying computer science 40 years ago, even 30 years ago, we used the IBM punch cards. This was 1K of memory, 1,000. 100 by 10, 1,000 bits of memory, 1K. Fortunately, this changed with better memories like floppy disks. First generation, 8 inches big, also 1K. But then it became smaller and better. This one was 512K. This was 1.4 mega. This is mega. And today we have pen drives of terabyte. So we have moved from 1K to 1 terabyte in a few decades, and this continues. An exponential change continues. And not only with computers, also with biology, with medicine. For example, with the human genome. You can see that the first human genome took 13 years to be sequenced, and it cost over $1 billion. Today, you can sequence your genome for a couple of $100 in a couple of hours with a little device like this. So it is not $1 billion or 13 years. Today is a couple of $100 with a device like this in 1 hour. And we expect this to become only $10 and 1 minute in about 5 years. This is doubly exponentially in time and exponentially in cost. So futurists, we talk about these changes, and there are 4 ways to think about the future. The worst one is to be passive, like an ostrich. You don't want to see what is going to happen. You hide your head. Terrible, terrible. A little bit less bad is to be reactive, like a firefighter that comes out when there is a fire. It is much better to be proactive, to prepare for the future, when you buy insurance, for example. But the best possible way is to be proactive, to create the future, to construct the future you want, and consider good scenarios and bad scenarios. So I hope that DTEK has no ostriches, because ostriches are not from the Ukraine. But if we have ostriches, we have to use technology anyway to fly and to see the future. We need to use exponential technologies to see the future. Because if you do not disrupt yourself, someone else will disrupt you. I like to say, Uber yourself before you get Kodak. And you know how Kodak finished very badly. So every industry in the world is being disrupted. Shopping, entertainment, advertisement, everything, energy, even governments are being disrupted by technology today. For example, Uber is the largest taxi company in the world, and it does not own a single car. Facebook, the largest media company, and it doesn't create content. Alibaba and Amazon, the biggest retailers in the world. Airbnb, the biggest hotel chain, and it doesn't own one single room. So this is a total disruption. I grew up in Venezuela, and there is a big oil company, Petróleos de Venezuela, PDVSA, the oil company of Venezuela, which is a company of the past. It's a company of the manufacturing, from the hands, manufacturing. But we are moving into mindfacturing, like Mickey Mouse, Walt Disney. Walt Disney today sells more than all the petroleum from Venezuela, because it's a new change of paradigm. It is not important physical manufacturing, now also mindfacturing, creating with the mind. And talking about the digital transformation today, who actually managed it very quickly? It was not really the CEO or the CTO or the CIO, it was COVID-19. Very quickly, it changed everything. What was going to be happening maybe in 3 or 5 or 10 years, it was achieved in 1 year. So things can change when we have disruption, and COVID has been a big disruptor. In every industry, also like transportation, telecommunications, we are connecting via Zoom, and Zoom actually went up so high that its market value was bigger than all the airplane companies, all the flight companies in the planet. This is incredible. And it happened because of COVID-19. So there are disruptions that change everything very quickly. And we are living in a time of the biggest disruption, a global reset, as the World Economic Forum is talking about. Everything will be reset after this pandemic. Put this into perspective, let me tell you that a few years back, 2 decades ago, I visited the most famous science fiction writer, futurist at the time, Sir Arthur C. Clarke, who is very famous for his movies and books, Space Odyssey 2001 and many others, but he also wrote the 3 laws of the future. First law of the future: when a famous scientist says that something is possible, he is probably right. But when he says that it is impossible, he's probably wrong. Second law of the future: the only way of discovering the limits of the possible is to venture past those limits into the impossible. And the third law of the future: any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So let's see some of these magical changes in the last few decades. 30 years ago, personal computers were magic, and we're conquering the world. Or 20 years ago, cell phones. And 10 years ago, companies like Google, Facebook, even Wikipedia, conquering the world in multiple languages as well. So what will happen in the next 10, 20, and 30 years? And remember that this is exponential. This is not linear. In the next 30 years, we are not going to see as many changes as in the last 30 years. No, we will see more changes than in the last 3,000 years. Some of those changes are, we will reach probably the singularity, immortality, and the energularity. What are these ideas? Well, first, today we consider that aging is a disease, but a curable disease. In fact, in the last couple of decades, we have been able to double the life expectancy of mice, multiply by 4 the life expectancy of mosquitoes, and by 10 the life expectancy of worms. We have worms that live the equivalent of 1,000 human years. These are Methuselah worms, worms that live like 1,000 human years equivalent. And this was done in the last 2 decades. What do you think will happen in the next 2 decades? In fact, today we know there are immortal cells. In fact, cancer is biologically immortal. Cancer cells are mutant cells that stop aging. That is why you need to kill cancer cells, because they do not age, they do not die on their own. But not only cancer cells are immortal, also germinal cells, the germinal cells that we all have, that make for reproduction, they do not age also. They can die when the body dies, but they do not age, and they can live indefinitely. There are also small life forms like hydras that are also biologically immortal, or some bacteria also that are biologically immortal. So when people tell me that immortality is impossible, I say it is not impossible. It is so possible that it already exists in nature. It happens. Some bacteria, hydras, germ cells, and even cancer cells discovered how to become immortal. There is a big movement now in Silicon Valley, led by big companies, including Google, to solve death. Death, today we consider a technical problem, and we will have a technical solution. We know how aging happens, how to stop it and reverse it. A friend of mine, Aubrey de Grey, was interviewed by MIT, my institution, my university in Massachusetts, Technology Review magazine, and they said at the time, 15 years ago, that it was impossible, that he was crazy, that immortality was impossible. Well, MIT and the magazine Technology Review changed its opinion last year, and they published that old age is over if you want it, because we are going to have the technology in the next 2 decades to reverse aging. So in the future, I actually plan to be younger than today, younger, not older, younger in 20 years, but not through a application, a phone application like Russian Face App. No, I plan to be younger biologically, thanks to the advances in technology and rejuvenation technologies. And let's talk about another industry that is being totally disrupted, which is energy, and which is the largest industry in the world today. It amounts for $8 trillion. And there is a huge disruption that people within the industry, inside the industry, don't see. For example, World Energy Outlook, published by the International Energy Agency, supposedly the top of the cream of the energy experts. They have been making wrong forecasts for the last 20 years. And also the Department of Energy of the USA, wrong forecast for the last 2 years. They always say that renewables will grow linearly. Always. You can see in the last few editions, grows linearly. But what is happening? Renewables are growing exponentially. And it is incredible that the International Energy Agency, after being wrong for 20 years, they don't open their eyes. They don't see how wrong they are, because there is a disruption coming from outside. If you look at the growth of solar energy, it is growing exponentially, beautifully. And if this continues, and it will continue, in 20 years, basically all of the energy in the planet will be basically solar energy and wind energy. There, of course, will be certain niche markets for hydropower or geothermal energy, or maybe even some small or big nuclear reactors in certain areas. But most of the energy of the planet will be renewable, led by solar and wind energy. Also because the cost keeps on decreasing. Production goes up and the cost keep going down. And we have reached already grid parity in most of the world. Grid parity means when renewable energy, basically solar energy in this case, is less than fossil fuel energy. And this is happening today in most of the world. And there is no turning back. There is no going back to coal or to other fossil fuels. Why? Because if you look at how much solar energy there is, it's the big elephant in the room. Solar energy could power civilization thousands of times more solar energy than we use today. So we have incredible amounts of unlimited, basically free solar energy reaching our planet all the time. We also have incredible amounts of wind energy and very good amounts of hydropower, geothermal power. And how much is global consumption? It's, in terms of power, about 15, soon 18 terawatts. But if you look how much solar power and wind power we have, it's more than enough for the global consumption. In fact, the National Academy of Engineering of the USA, among the challenges of the future, have said that the #1 challenge is to make solar energy economical. And this is supported by Larry Page of Google. And this will be the priority of engineering of the USA. And in my alma mater, in MIT, there is an energy initiative. And all the students at MIT have to take a course in energy, because this is the largest industry in the world, and it is going through a total disruption. Even companies that came from the petroleum world, like British Petroleum, they like to call themselves now Beyond Petroleum, because they are no longer British and they are no longer petroleum. But many other companies, Shell, they are considering sustainable scenarios, and many other companies. Why? Because there is a decarbonization of energy. We are leaving carbon behind and moving into hydrogen, because hydrogen actually is the energy of the universe, hydrogen. Humanity has gone through different waves, energy waves, going from wood, trees, coal, oil, gas, and then others, including obviously hydrogen and renewables, solar energy, and wind energy. Sheikh Ahmed Yamani from Saudi Arabia, minister for many years in Saudi Arabia, he said in the year 2000 that by 2030, in 10 years, the oil industry will be finished. And his face is, the Stone Age did not end because of lack of stones, and the oil age will end soon, and not because of lack of oil. There are 10 years for this prophecy, which will happen by that time. Also, we need to consider the environment, because there is global warming. Things change up and down. We don't control the weather yet, and this is a real problem, both inside the planet and outside the planet, because the solar obviously has a huge impact on planet Earth. And the solar also has fluctuation. The solar activity goes up and down, and that changes also the conditions on our planet. And this continues, but global warming, regardless of the sun, is real. And this is the proof that solar warming is real, is happening, and we have to be ready. We have to have a plan B. Fantastic example of an energy transformation is Germany, with their famous Energiewende, energy transition, energy transformation. Energy actually, Germany is a country that consumes lots more energy than the Ukraine. Even though it is smaller, It is a country maybe half the size of the Ukraine geographically, but it has 2 times the population of the Ukraine. So there is a big difference, but they have moved in the last 20 years into renewables. And today, half of the electricity of Germany is produced by renewables, solar and wind basically, and a third of the total energy consumption. And this was done in only 2 decades. And I repeat, they consume and they produce much more energy than the Ukraine, and they are farther up north. Germany has less sun than the Ukraine. Other places with more sun, like the United Arab Emirates, are talking about creating solar cities like Masdar City, which means the source in Arabic, which is a solar city project. And it is also growing with solar energy, electric cars, intelligent vehicles. And this is happening also in a country that had the lowest bid for energy production in history for solar energy. 1.35 cents per kilowatt hour. This is incredible. Only 1.35 cents of dollar per kilowatt hour of energy. But not only the Emirates, even Egypt, they are putting solar panels not too far from the pyramids. And even the USA is increasing its energy, improving its energy matrix, because if you look at the top right, over half of the energy produced in the USA is wasted, is basically rejected, is not used properly. So this is another big factor, not only moving into better energy sources, but also using it better. So total disruption in the market. And this is what we call the Enernet, the energy internet. And we will connect the whole planet eventually with wireless energy transmission, maybe in 2 to 3 decades, wireless energy transmission. And we are moving from dirty energy into cheap energy, from a stupid grid, dumb grid, into distributed intelligent system. And a big disruption, total disruption in the next decade. So all companies, especially energy companies like DTEK, who want to create the future, have to be ready for this Enernet, energy internet. Also, we are moving from different energy materials. Up to now, we were basically using energy materials with low content, energy content, methanol, coal, ethanol, LPG, butanol, which had very low energy content in megajoules per kilogram. Even hydrogen, which is much better. If you look at hydrogen, it has about 220 megajoules per kilogram, which is much better than coal or methanol, etc. But it still is low compared to future energy sources that we will see in the future, especially when we move into the domains of Einstein's equation and matter and antimatter for space travel. Back on Earth, Tesla is changing game of transportation, and it has done it in 10 years, incredibly fast. Tesla basically didn't exist a decade ago. They began making their first cars, and then they went public, very small company, and by last year it was a huge company, bigger than all American companies, and today actually is bigger than all companies in the car industry. Obviously this will go down probably because Chinese companies are coming in, and Chinese want to be big as well. In any event, the whole game is changing for transportation. It will be electric and it will be intelligent, self-driving vehicles. We will have supercharger stations everywhere in the planet. Today, I'm living in Spain. We have a big network of superchargers beginning that will connect Spain to France, to Germany, all the way to Northern Europe. And this is done very quickly, very efficiently. And Tesla, after it created its first gigafactory in Nevada, in the USA, created a second one in the eastern USA, a third one in Shanghai, and now began a fourth one in Berlin, in Germany. In Germany, Tesla is moving. But the Chinese are not staying quiet. The Chinese, the last few years, companies like BYD and others, there are many Chinese companies, are moving into electric cars too. So this will be the future in 10 years. All new cars in 10 years will probably be intelligent, self-driving, and electric vehicles. Why? If you look 100 years ago, when Ford Motor had the famous Model T model, once they began mass producing, the cost dropped exponentially. With more production, cost kept on dropping. This is happening with Tesla today, with the Model 3, and this will continue. This is called Wright's Law. Wright's Law has to do with economies of a scale, and the more we produce, the faster and the bigger price decrease. And this happens in all industries, not just with cars. It happens with airplanes and many, many other industries. Some people think this is not possible to change in 1 decade or 2 decades, but it is possible. It is very possible, and it has happened many times. Look at New York in the year 1900. This is the Fifth Avenue in New York City. All the carriages, all the transportation was powered by horses, except for one little exception, one experimental motor vehicle that didn't have horses. What happened in 13 years in the same Fifth Avenue? If you look, there were no horses anymore, except for one single horse still left that disappeared in 1914. No more horses in New York in 13 years. This is incredible. This will happen again, from gasoline cars to electric cars and many other things related to energy. Why? Again, because remember, solar energy is the big elephant in the room, and it is basically infinite, and it is very cheap compared to other energy resources. How much space do we need if we put solar panels on planet Earth? Well, actually, not much. We could power the whole human civilization today with 6 land blocks of 100 kilometers by 100 kilometers full of solar panels that we could put in different parts of the world. Actually, I repeat, the Ukraine has a lot of sunshine compared to Germany, or compared to Russia, or compared to the Nordic countries. So we could have make the Ukraine a solar power, a Saudi Arabian of solar energy. This is possible, this can be done, and this will be done for the first comers. So is DTEK a first comer, a visionary company? And not only solar power on Earth, solar power on space. All the satellites use solar power. All the satellites, even the International Space Station, is powered with solar satellites. It doesn't have a nuclear reactor. It has solar panels. And to talk about how much energy there is in the universe, there is an incredible, well, there was a fantastic scientist who died last year, and I visited him in Moscow, Nikolai Kardashev, who devised the energy scale of the universe. And he talked in his first version over half a century ago about 3 different types of civilizations in the universe. A civilization type 1, which is a civilization that uses all the energy of the planet, available to the planet. In our case, this is 10 to the 16 watts of power. That is a civilization type 1 for planet Earth. A civilization type 2 would be all the power in the solar system, which in our case would be 10 to the 26 watts. And he also talked about a civilization type 3, which is 10 to the 36 watts for our galaxy, for the Milky Way. But we have other galaxies. So we talk about type 4 civilization now, and even type 5 civilization now. And this is the energy scale of the universe. I followed up some of these numbers based on Nikolai Kardashev's visionary dreams about the energy of the universe. And let's put some of the things in perspective. Our brain, the human brain, is a machine of 30 watts. 30 watts, our brain here, 30 watts. Our whole body, the whole body is 100 watts, 100 watts. The biggest dam on Earth, the Three Gorges Dam in China, is 18 gigawatts, being expanded to 22 gigawatts. The biggest power plant on Earth, 22 gigawatts. Well, we could have this with solar power. The civilization today, human civilization has gone from 13, 15, soon 18 terawatts of power. But what is a type 1 civilization today for planet Earth? It is a civilization with 174 petawatts. A petawatt is 10 to the 15 watts. So this is the energy scale of the universe, and we are babies. We are babies. We have seen nothing yet. We are moving into an incredible future of energy, more energy. Why? Because we need energy. Energy is the basics of the universe. My friend Ray Kurzweil, he talks about the technological singularity, which is the moment when artificial intelligence reaches human intelligence, and that he expects to happen in 3 decades, when artificial intelligence reaches human intelligence, the singularity. Then my other friend, Aubrey de Grey, he talks about the Methuselarity or immortality, or the singularity of Methuselah, when we become immortal, when we live 1,000 years. And this we expect to happen also in 3 decades. And so I created the concept of the energularity, the energy singularity. And this will happen too in the next 3 decades, because exponential increases in energy production thanks to solar power and wind power. So we live in incredible times of singularity, Methuselarity, or immortality, and energularity. Civilization is finally moving into space. After 40 years since Neil Armstrong stepped on the moon, and he said this beautiful phrase, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." And this is finally happening now, because we live in a small planet, in a small solar system, in a small galaxy, in a basically infinite universe. So we are nothing yet. We are just beginning our travel through space. We are going to go to Mars very soon, actually. There are 3 zones going right now to planet Mars, one from China, from the European, the European Union and Russia, ExoMars, has been delayed from 2020 to 2022. But still there are missions from the United Arab Emirates, the USA, and China. 3 zones are flying right now to Mars. Incredible. And then Russia, the European Union, and Japan in 2 more years, and India in 4 years. This is government, private sector, but for the first time also private companies, enterprises are moving into space industry, space business that will be powered by energy, lots of energy. Example, SpaceX is planning to go to Mars in 2024. Absolutely incredible. A private company. Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic are talking about the moon, but eventually Mars. And there have been other ideas like Mars One and Inspiration Mars that don't exist now, but many more projects will come. Again, Elon Musk, he has said that he wants to die on Mars, but not on landing. Not on landing, no. He wants to die of old age on Mars, but I think he will not die either, because when he might be supposed to die in 3 decades, 4, 5, 6 decades, we will reverse aging. So probably he will not die and he will go to Mars. The first Martians will be humans. We will be the first Martians. We will colonize Mars. In fact, the plan is to terraform Mars, and not just Mars, many other planets in the universe. We are discovering hundreds, thousands of habitable planets. Human civilization will move into space thanks to a lot of energy. Like Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, the great Russian physicist, astrophysicist, said, "The Earth is the cradle of humanity, but we cannot live forever in the cradle." We are evolving. We have to keep evolving. Carefully. We don't want to end all fat and useless. We want to evolve and merge with technology, with civilization, because human evolution has not ended, continues. We are using now lots of technology, exponential technologies for the first time in human history. And we have to be careful because there is always the dark side of the force. There is yin and yang. And this is so complex that even inside we have little yin and yang. But we have to think about the future, the good and the bad. And for that, let me show this beautiful Chinese phrase. The Chinese say, light up the world, light up the world. Do not blame darkness, but light up a candle, light up a candle. And very near China, actually, there is a small country, North Korea, which is in total darkness, total darkness. North Korea is the last country in the world without internet to the people. And also it's very dark because it has no power supplies, reliable power supplies. So we need to think where we want to go, to dark North Korea or to bright South Korea, which has the best internet in the world. So compare North Korea versus South Korea. So we need to meditate. The future is about meditation, about thinking. I love Hindu meditation, Buddhist meditation, many meditations. And I finish with this Chinese word, which is beautiful. And I lived 3 years in Japan, so I learned Chinese characters. And sometimes I wrote it upside down or sideways. But now I know how to write this well. This is a beautiful Chinese word that has 2 characters. The word means crisis, crisis, and we are in a big crisis. The first character means danger, but the second character means opportunity. Humanity is in the biggest crisis of modern times, a total disruption of every sector, a total disruption of energy and of industries. And there is danger, there is danger. Of course, there is danger, but there is opportunity. So let's think about the incredible opportunities of the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cordeiro. Gentlemen, we've got some time for the questions from the hall. Are there anybody to ask the question? Let us think and let us use this time very efficiently. If not, I will usurp him totally. So, well, it's not about the lack of the competition. Let me ask the questions from the audience. The first question. What could be the role of Ukraine in the world of the future world of energy singularity?
Well, a very good question. And because I was in the Ukraine about 20 years ago, I hope to return in person, hopefully next year or soon, to help with these new developments. But the Ukraine, as I mentioned, could become the Saudi Arabia of solar power for Northern Europe or for Russia. I mean, it has potential. It has more sunshine than Russia, for example. So there is a big opportunity in energy. Also, there is opportunity in terms of longevity and rejuvenation because the Ukraine has a very advanced industry, and actually some Ukrainian scientists that I know living also in the Ukraine and outside the Ukraine, they are working on rejuvenation technologies. They are working on longevity. This is all very new. So the Ukraine could become a world leading nation in longevity industry, in energy industry. So I hope that you open up your eyes, you do like the ostriches that fly, the ones that fly, and see the future, see the technologies, and use these exponential technologies to change quickly, exponentially, faster, cheaper, and better.
And the last, we've got the question. Okay, please, the question from you. Just a moment, you need the microphone for that. Vitaly, right? Because I don't see from here. Vitaly Grigorovich, right?
Thank you very much for a very exciting presentation.
Пожалуйста, говорите на русском. Простите.
I do apologize. Would you speak Russian? Okay, thank you for the presentation. The question is the following. While you expect the exponential growth and singularity, what's the effect it will have on in the global context, taking into consideration the economic, political, and social differences between different countries and peoples, like disparities? because the growth of the technologies which can be useful for one countries and nations can be totally lethal for others, because not everybody can get use of this growth. Could you comment upon that?
Yes, excellent question. And I think that all of humanity will benefit by exponential technologies, because today we can move technology throughout the world very quickly. One example is COVID-19 vaccines. This is incredible what is happening. A vaccine would take about 10 years to develop, 10 years. And now in 10 months, we have almost 10 vaccines. It really is incredible. It's absolutely amazing. And these vaccines will be distributed even to the poorest people in the planet. People in Africa, people in India will also get the vaccines. It might take a bit longer, but it's not going to be years longer. It's going to be maybe months, and I hope weeks, only weeks behind some other countries. Why? Because technology is advancing and it is becoming so much cheaper, like sequencing the human genome. I mentioned this. The equivalent of this 20 years ago cost $1 billion, $1 billion, and it took 13 years to sequence the genome. Today, you can do it for a couple of $100 in a couple of hours. And in 5 years, you will do it for $10 in 1 minute. This is exponential technology. This is exponential power. And it's happening in every area, in medicine, in energy, because solar panels can be deployed anywhere. And also, we will have, maybe in 20 years, wireless energy transmission. That means that you will be able to transfer energy also from outside planet Earth onto Earth, as I showed, through space satellites. We will be able to power the whole planet with wireless energy transmission very cheaply. Everybody will have energy. Everybody will have medicine. Everybody will have access to energy. In fact, there will be planetary internet, hopefully in a couple of years. Planetary energy powered by satellites, space satellites, like Elon Musk is doing with Starlink, or Richard Branson has also another plan for planetary internet. There are right now at least 3 plans for planetary internet. So this will change humanity. In 2 to 3 years, you will not be able to say anymore, I don't know. Because if you want to know, you will connect yourself to internet with your mobile phone, and you will have access to all the information. There are no limits to knowledge, no limits to access in a world that is totally connected. And it will be connected, and basically, I think, for free. Companies in 2 to 3 years will probably give free basic internet throughout the planet. Free basic internet. This will change humanity. We will have medicine, we will have internet, we will have knowledge, we will have energy.
Are there any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Please, we are very short of time. Please, if there are anybody. Okay, then the final question from me, or maybe from you, from the audience. I'm just broadcasting my question, dear friends. Would you please tell what now can be done by business and should be done by business to prepare for the future?
To fly, open up your eyes, look at the technologies, and also mixing technologies. We live in a world of technological convergence. So you cannot only use one technology, you need to use multiple technologies. I heard that you also talked a lot about blockchain. Blockchain is very important. It might not have, at first sight, anything to do with energy, but it will have to do a lot to do with energy. And then in terms of cars, as I mentioned, they will be intelligent cars, electric cars, self-driving cars, all connected. This will create an incredible amount of information that we have to process with artificial intelligence, because we humans, we have limited brains. We have small brains. We cannot process all the information. We need bigger brains, and not just biological brains, but we need a global brain. So companies need to be open-minded, because disruption comes from outside. This is important to remember. Most disruption does not come from inside, does not come from the company, does not come from the industry, comes from outside. So we need to look outside, see what is happening, what other companies are doing in blockchain, what other companies are doing in artificial intelligence, what other companies are doing on biotechnology, nanotechnology, space travel. Again, this will be a huge industry, a huge industry. Some people say that the first trillionaires of the next decade will be space trillionaires because we are going into space. Elon Musk has said it. There will be a colony on Mars by the end of this decade. We will have humans on Mars, and we will need lots of energy, and we will need lots of connections between Mars and planet Earth. We will need lots of medicine, lots of everything. But we are moving also, I forgot to say, into an economy of abundance. We are leaving scarcity behind, and we are moving into abundance. Malthus, the British economist, Robert Thomas Malthus, he said that we lived in a world of scarcity, that we had limited resources, but that has changed with technology. Technology is the enabler. Technology is what lets us grow rich, grow wealthy, and faster and better. So we need more technology to move into this world of abundance. So we will be able to produce more of everything with less resources, more and more with less and less. We are moving into a world of abundance. In fact, even the poorest people today are wealthier than the kings 1,000 years ago. And even the kings 1,000 years ago, the queens and the kings, they could die fairly young of horrible diseases that we are controlling, that we are stopping, that we are reversing aging today. So even to be poor today is better than being a king or a queen thousands of years ago, because we are moving into an economy of abundance, into a planetary economy, into an interplanetary economy, connecting Earth, the Moon, and Mars in the next decade.
Спасибо.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cordeiro. Esteemed ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, and a round of applause to the chairman of the Venezuela node of the Millennium Project and energy advisor at Singularity University at Silicon Valley, Jose Luis Cordeiro. Thank you so much. Thank you.